Is connecting? Great. All right. Thank you all very much and good morning and welcome to Gateway GIS Virtual Forum. And of course, today I am so proud to have an opportunity to present Dr. Leslie McIntosh. And Leslie, is now on you to talk about your company, what you do, and you can take over from here. All right?
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Roz, for having me, for inviting me, for the patience in getting this scheduled. And for anyone who watches this, please thank her for the time that it takes, because the amount of time it takes to organize and coordinate with people, especially people with interesting schedules, is not insignificant. So thank you for what you do, Dr. Roz, for this community and for us. So that's great. And thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, great.
All right. What I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen, because what would this be without some sort of presentation? And I'm going to go through what you ask about, about my company, what I do, and then what I like to do and what I will do is go through about me a little bit and a little mentoring advice that I always like to put in. Hopefully, someone hears something that you find good, and if not, just ignore it and move on. So I'm going to talk about the future of data analytics and research, and specifically, I'm going to talk about my company, which is called Ripeta. And Ripeta is actually the Italian word for it's a polite command to repeat. Italian has all of these interesting things, and one of them is a polite command. And there are two things that are significant about this. One is my company was about the reproducibility of research, and that's where we started. We've grown since then, but that's where we started. And the second thing, which was extremely important, is that the .com was available. So that's why my company's named what it is. People say Ripeta, Ripeta, and Ripeta, and I don't really care, tomato, tomato. I care if I get a customer. So that's what I'm doing. So what do we do at Ripeta? Let me talk you through the process. And this is definitely from a scientific standpoint. So those of you who've had science or going into science, I assume because this is STEAM, you've at least had a little bit of exposure. You'll understand some of this. But what we're trying to address, and this is always critical in doing anything, is what's the problem you're trying to address? And this is, how do we check the quality of science? And specifically, how do we check the quality based on scientific publications that come out? And we're looking at three main categories. One is what's coming out research. The second is looking at the professionalism. So these are integrity checks. And then the third is the work reproducible? And I'll go into more of what that means. So if you take a scientific paper like this one, which is the relationship between the ABO blood group and COVID-19 susceptibility, which came out about this time last year, and it was called a preprint. So these are scientific papers that have not gone through the peer review process yet, but are in the public. And this one got a lot of media attention, by the way, because at that point, if you remember a year ago, we knew a lot less than what we know now about COVID. So one of the things that we do is we look at things like this, and we look to see, is there a study objective? This should be a hypothesis, but not everyone names it as a hypothesis. The other thing is, does it have scientific headings? And why is that important? Well, we're not going to check the reproducibility of science if it's something like a commentary. But the other thing that we've learned about throughout this year is that there's misinformation campaigns going on within science as well. And so this allows for us to check before something goes in, should it even be considered as research? The next thing we're looking at is professionalism. And one of the things we look at is the author real? And again, this is kind of on the integrity and the misinformation that's happening in science, but what we're seeing is some people are putting, I actually have a paper coming out, should be in the next couple of weeks, about imposters and impersonators in science. They're not scientists, and they're pretending that they are, and they're putting out papers. In this paper, these are the actual authors of the same paper I just mentioned, and they are real, by the way. And one of the things we look for in science are called these ORCID IDs, which is a way to kind of give you credibility for who you are. And that's what we're looking for. Again, none of this is actually judging the science yet. We're just looking for, we're using natural language processing to extract the data from text. And I'll go through a little bit that in a minute. And then we also look at, important things like, do they share their data? Do they have a data availability statement? Is the code available? So these are things within science that we're looking for to trust the science more or trust the science less. And there are legitimate reasons that people will not share their data. And there are issues with sharing their data, but we want to know if it's there and if they have a reason for that and if they give it. So that's what we look, and we look at a manual review of that. But then, because we program things, again, using NLP, natural language processing, and machine learning, we can extract things out. We extract a DOI, which is an identifier for a paper, kind of like having a social security number for a person. This is a unique identifier for a paper, and summarize whether those things are there. And then we actually give a review. So we can send an email to the author saying, here's what we found. And not only if we found it, is there a recommendation to do better? So the idea is not just to leave people in the lurch on whether they've done something right or it could be improved, but actually try to help them improve it. So what I wanted to show, which is I think pretty cool, is where this gets to is you're able to automate it and build programs like this. Now, this is what you get to see is the draft form of what we're doing. So this is not the end product that will come out. We're having a new product come out in April. So what happens is we get a score, and then we can put that score up on each of these components, and the person can see that based on the research, whoever's looking at it, and you can actually see which parts that are underneath professionalism in this case and what we found. So a funding statement was found, an open access statement was found, and then of course what I was saying on the reproducibility, the data availability statement, and things like that. So that's the new version of our tool that's coming out. And I always do this, my apologies, I'm just trying to go to the next slide. There we go. And I took you through the things that you could do individually because the way that my process is to look at a problem, look at things on an individual level, and then start automating that. And then we build the programs, and then we still check the programs for things like what we were looking at, but we get to then summarize things like this: data location, where are people sharing data? And this was the preprint analysis. Like I said, these were 535 COVID papers that had not gone through peer review. So no other scientists had read these yet. These came out, this was by March of last year, and there was only 535. To give you an example, by the end of the year of 2020, there were over, on this preprint servers, there was over 12,000 papers by the end of the year, which was phenomenal for science. Right. The other thing we've been able to see on this is that people were sharing their data a lot more with COVID than they were ever before. So we had been talking about sharing data. Mary, who's on the call, who works for the Research Data Alliance, this is what they do, is help share globally on data. And we hadn't really seen it in practice until COVID hit. And then scientists started sharing more. And that's been incredible. So what we also can do is then, this aggregation of information we could look at may seem, I don't know what it seems like to you, but this front color right here are those papers that we looked at that then went on to be published. Mm-hmm. So some of them didn't start off with a great structure, but who knows, with peer review, more than likely some of those went in there. But what we're able to do is say to publishers, this back part here that's reddish pink, but in the background, those are papers that actually scored pretty well, but weren't published. And so we're able to go back and go, wait a minute, should these be looked at? And in fact, a couple of those are really good papers. And I think what happened, and I don't know, is that the authors were very busy because they were also practicing trying to solve problems on COVID, and they didn't get their papers published, but there are actually some pretty good ones. So what we're trying to do is speed up science this way in ways that we can do it. Oh yeah, there we go. Had I remembered that I put the next slide in, that's what I'm talking about right there. So again, the problem we're trying to look at is how do we check the quality of science? We look at those indicators, and my apologies, but I think I went the wrong way. So my apologies on that. So the 535 COVID papers, I'm going to take you through 4 of them. And what you can see is that we extract this information. It's presented in a table, but we extract this information. And you can see that going from the top to the bottom, it is they're less well structured to much better structured. That's what we're trying to say. So the first one that was a preprint was not very well structured, and it ended up being withdrawn. So what happened with this one is the media got a hold of it. You know, they're trying to give information out about science, but they really didn't understand the quality either. And then scientists got a hold of it and said, you know what, no, there's some problems with this. But again, we're trying to speed up science. So the media plays a very important role. Journalists play a very important role in what we do. It's just trying to communicate that. So that's what we're also trying to do is give journalists a heads up. Hey, maybe don't take this one so seriously just yet. It needs a little bit more work. The second one I think a lot of us know is the hydroxychloroquine one, which got way overhyped. And when I put under review, that was a major one that people had problems with. But again, structurally, we kind of already knew that there may be issues. So maybe we should have taken a closer look before that one went out. The fourth one, which is the ABO blood type one that I showed in the beginning, it got a lot of attention very early on. And unfortunately, it was overstated because when you go back and you look at the science of this paper, it's not that bad. I mean, the scientific work was good. The researchers are good. Yes, the paper needed some work, but it then ended up not getting the attention until later because, first of all, just so you know, ABO blood type does have an effect on maybe how severe COVID is, but it will not protect you from it. So that take that home right there. And I think that's what they were looking for. And that is not what the authors stated. So that was kind of an unfortunate one on this one. And then this last one actually structurally was good. They shared their data, they shared their code, and this one went on, it was published. It helped, move forward with the vaccine development. So this is what we're trying to do is we're trying to automate some checks of science so that it can move faster. And we've seen in this past year, it needs to, and it can. So this is kind of the summary of those for our scores. It's from low, medium to high. The outcome is different on each of those. Citations within science is huge, whether a paper gets cited, but what we're trying to show is that attention, which is the citation does not mean that it's of quality. And we really need to be checking the quality of the science as we move forward. Mm-hmm. So this is what I wanted. That's an old one I wanted to show. I don't know why some of the ones I deleted did not get deleted. So my apologies on that. But I wanted to talk about my wonderful team, 4 of whom are from live in St. I live in St. Louis and have for a while. My kids went to Dewey Elementary School and then on up through the St. Louis public school system and the magnet schools. Cynthia's from St. Louis, and Leah and Ruthie are actually from St. Louis Public School high school graduates as well, and they now work for me. Oh, sorry, Josh is also from St. Louis. But this is my team. Cynthia and I founded the company. Darrell came on because he is a seasoned sales and marketing person, and I did not realize how important that is when you start a company. So that was my lesson learned on company, and he's really accelerating our sales, which is that. So that's my company. I want to talk just a little bit about me. So I'm switching from science to me, but I hope I'll get a few questions, Dr. Roz. I know you'll at least ask me a question. So, but I wanted to talk about me. And so what I did was I did a little video of my LinkedIn, which won't take very long, but I wanted to talk through this. Sorry. Can you still see?
Yes.
Okay. That's going too quickly. Somehow doing Zoom and trying to pause is a little bit more than what Zoom wants to do. So let me see if I can redo this. That was intentional. So we're going to start play. There's me. I'm the CEO of Ripeta that's located in St. Louis. And there's somebody else helped me write that I'm an internationally known consultant, speaker, and trainer who is passionate about mentoring the next generation of data scientists, which is very true. My point on this is it helped to have somebody else help write for me because what I wrote about myself was a little more boring. Let's see, I'm going to keep going. This is on my private. I promoted the wonderful GatewayGIS this morning. So let's look at what I've done. I am the CEO of Ripeta. I'm on a board. I'm on another board because I need to put that one on, but I haven't. I was the executive director for the Research Data Alliance, which is an organization that promotes the global data sharing and open data and open science. I've been a consultant at St. Louis University for the Center for Outcomes Research. I founded and helped organize the Machine Learning and Data Science Meetup, and I'm going to put a plug for that. I'm going to put a plug for Research Data Alliance. I'll also put a plug for the Machine Learning and Data Science Meetup that then one of my mentees, Deanna Tipton, who came to me and said, I want to be a data scientist, and she helped volunteer. I was then able to, I should show her smiling face and my smiling face when I passed the baton on to her. So she took that over. She grew that. There's over 2,100 members, and she has now passed that on as she has grown in her data science career and become a consultant. She's a phenomenal individual. So, but I'm going to promote that. It's free, monthly. You can go, you can hear different talks, take what you want, leave what you don't want. And I was at Washington University for 10 years in the School of Medicine. I oversaw the Center for Biomedical Informatics and worked, actually that's how Mary and I met, and ran through a lot of medical data. And I was a national evaluator on a program called Vivo. I was a program coordinator at SLU. This was back when I was getting my my graduate degree. I was an intern at Carnegie Mellon. Let's stop here at my education. So I want you to notice the dates on here, and you can figure out how old I am from these. But there's a bit of a gap from my undergraduate to my graduate degree at St. Louis University. And I know I'm moving backwards, but this tells a lot, and what's not there tells a lot as well. So I was at Washington University. I had already attained my PhD, and then I realized I wanted more. And that's when I wanted more on the business side. And I leveraged, because I when you're there, they were able to pay for it. I got the certificate at the Women's Leadership Forum. And I highly encourage women to find something like this for you, because I think our leadership, what we need and how we need to be trained is a little different. Mm-hmm. So, and I shouldn't just say women, but whatever group you may feel that you're in, if there's something for you like this, like the GatewayGIS, take advantage of it, because there's an environment in which you can ask questions that you can't always ask questions in other environments. So that really propelled me to help me start a company and move out of WashU. My PhD, this was when my twin boys were 7 when I started that. So in between my PhD, which I always wanted to have, and my undergraduate, I married rather young, I had kids rather young, and I decided that I wanted to go back to school because I always wanted a PhD, and I did it with kids. And I remember sitting with my laptop, on a Friday evening, watching a show so that they could be entertained, I could be entertained, and I could work on my dissertation. What this also doesn't show is that I actually never finished high school. I ended up dropping out of high school, but I went on and I did finish my undergraduate degree, and that was important for me. And I say these things because it's important to understand that this resume, when I look at my LinkedIn profile, I'm very proud. Okay. Very proud of what I've done. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, but it's not everything about me. I grew up in government housing in Dallas. I went to the Dallas Public School District. I was raised by a single mom. I ended up becoming a single mom during my life. Life is never, perfect. I did have my grandparents who helped me immensely, our broader family, friends, whoever, I want to make sure they get credit for, all the times we had dinner when we couldn't afford it. We went over, and my grandparents, it's kind of a long story, but we had chickens in the backyards in the city of Dallas. So, it's an interesting life we live. But I've made it here, and I've started my own company, but where I started and where I am are two different places. And I just want to always make sure that people see that and don't assume things by somebody's resume.
Right.
And then the last part, if I can get to my next slide, is just kind of the tips that I wanted to tell your group before we get to question and answering. And that is, I think, besides having confidence in yourself, is working your network and finding mentorship. And the network, I don't think I appreciated how much your network pays over your lifetime. Meeting people, going out, putting yourself forward, and trust me, there's a lot of embarrassing moments, especially for people like me who feel a little socially awkward in some situations, because when I like nerdy things and I like to talk about data, that's not always socially appropriate at dinner, but I enjoy it anyway. But the fact of the matter is, go out, meet people. I mentioned Deanna, and I should text her because I did not ask her permission, but I'm just going to put it out there. She came to me. I was the director of the Center for Biomedical Informatics. She had seen me at the meetup. She said, I want to be a data scientist. How do I do it? And we ended up fostering a wonderful relationship. I ended up mentoring her, and then she has moved on in her career, and we keep in touch, but she doesn't need my mentorship necessarily anymore. But that was because of the network. That's because she put herself out there. She took chances, and she's done well. And she's not the only one. I pride myself on being able to mentor people and be able to truly pass on what I've been fortunate enough. So find a mentor. My other piece of advice on this for the young women on here is find a mentor that's also a woman. You're going to have both men and women, but you need one that is a woman who will have your back and who will understand where you're coming from. Young men, don't be afraid to have women as mentors either. But you're going to have to find men. And if I don't want to discriminate against non-binary, find somebody who's similar to you. Find somebody that you can trust, because you need somebody in that trusting relationship. You need somebody to go, wait a minute, they're about to offer you too little money. And I'm gonna pick on my relationship with Deanna just one more time. And that is, and I guess I should stop sharing at some point, but she interviewed for a very big company, and we worked on it, and 3 interviews, and then they said no. Now, what I think they were doing, and what she thinks is they were doing, is they were checking off a box that they needed to interview, certain types of people, and they needed to check off the box. And there was nothing we could do about that. I didn't realize that was going on. There was nothing I could do as a mentor. But let me tell you now, when somebody contacts me and they said, I'm looking for data scientists, I'm really trying to expand beyond just the white men that I'm getting, can you help me? I go after them. And I said, I asked them, will you tell me, how are you doing this? How big of a network are you doing? What type of support do you have? Because I don't want to mentor someone so you can check a box, and that has wasted all of our time. And because of that mentorship relationship with Deanna, I learned how to be a bit better mentor and help people coming afterwards. And by the way, on that one, that turned out pretty good. It ended up being like the Department of Defense got a hold of me and was like, well, here's our plan. And so I kindly told them how they could improve their plan. But I'm in a position where I can do that now, and I don't keep my mouth shut on that either. So as Mary knows, who's worked with me. But that's the science, that's my company, that's me. I'll take any questions. And I'm again, Dr. Ross, thank you again so much for having me on here and being able to talk with the group.
Well, let me go ahead and get us started. I noticed on your slide pertaining to your team members, what would be the different duties, let's say, of a data engineer versus maybe a person that's a data analyst? Okay.
Yep. No, that's a really good question. So I'm actually going to do data engineer, data scientist, and data analyst, because I see those as three different people. Okay. Or three different. Now, when you're in a small company, you get people and you're going, yeah, you're going to have to do both. So my data engineer, Ruthie, has to act both as the data scientist and the data analyst, which means that she has to clean data. She has to work in databases, structures the data so that we can analyze it. She ends up helping it, help analyze it. Whereas Paola, who is my lead data engineer, is working on getting the data, which is a different, sometimes people know both of those skills, but usually she has much more of a computer science background and Python, whereas somebody like Ruthie is going to have more of a some statistical training and Python experience as far as a tool, and maybe R as well, or something. She's also worked in other things like Tableau and visualizing data. In a small company like mine, you have to be willing to learn a lot, because a lot of people have to do a lot of things. And then the analyst, in a lot of jobs, an analyst has the data. So somebody like Ruthie will have cleaned it, will have prepared it for you, and then you start looking at it in charts, you start graphing it, you start, if you know any statistics, looking at it that way. But that's how I differentiate those three.
Okay. The next person up is Tom. And as we go through this question and answer session, let's give a quick introduction as to who we are, okay? Because I know Leslie and everybody pretty much know me, and Leslie, you know me. So now as we go through, starting with Tom, and then there's various and different ones, please introduce yourself, your name, your title, your connection with, GatewayGIS, that kind of thing. And then, go into your comment. Okay.
He's having his people with him, and they going in blind, like thinking, like, "Hey, I don't really know what's going on." But it's like,
I think Darius just came on.
Okay, Darius.
Yeah, that's the thing about leadership. Always know what the leaders have been doing behind the scenes until you see.
Hold on just a moment.
So
yep.
Oz, you should be able to mute him.
So
I am trying.
Something like that again.
There we go.
I did. Okay. All right, Tom, would you please introduce yourself and then go into whatever it is that you would like to inquire of Leslie.
Leslie, my name's Tom Bast. I am a computer science instructor at Clyde C. Miller Career Academy in St. Louis Public Schools. I teach students at the high school level how to build web pages and websites, how to code. We're trying to start in literally next week on some Python. I'm also teaching students a little bit of game design, and we're working on app design. But my certification is in Microsoft Technology Associate tests for HTML, CSS. I'm trying to work on a Python one, and then I've been certified in computer science principles. And then this next summer, I'll be computer science A. So I just wanted to, the reason I got on though was not just really to let you know about me, but more importantly, the two students that are on here are two of mine. Shirzaya is, Shirzaya, do I have your permission to introduce you and tell them the great things you've been doing, and Malik the same?
Sure.
Okay.
Granted.
All right. Shirzaya is a senior for me. She will be ready to graduate in May. But what I wanted to let you know is she's done web design computer competitions. And probably the most significant thing happened to her yesterday. And I'm just telling her this because she is, like you had said yourself, a little bit of a quiet person. But she went through an interview process over the last month and a half, and Darty Business Solutions has offered
Oh.
her an IT apprenticeship to try to work with them, and they're going to put her on a pretty rigorous schedule starting in April. But the reason I brought up Shazia's accomplishments is not to make her blush, but when you mentioned about mentoring and networking, I thought that because Shazia is, you know, you both are similar, that maybe there is a connection there that can help her out, even though I know that your data processing and things are based highly in the medical aspects, but you are really working in software engineering and computer things. So Shazia, if you're open to it, maybe Dr. Leslie can connect with you in some way and connect you to other people that can help you along on your path. I mean, I'm very proud of her. And and Shazia, I don't want to speak for you. Do you want to speak for yourself? Even turn on your camera if you would so choose, and just let them know about yourself.
Would you please, Josiah?
My camera, I have to figure out how to turn it on.
Okay,
because I'm on my phone right
okay,
now. So.
then as long as we can hear you, that's half the battle. Go ahead and
You
speak
kind
what
of
you would
said
like.
everything though. You said exactly what I was going to say. You introduced my name. I'm a student in your class. I could talk about how I started, I guess, with just coming in your class. I kind of doubted myself when I first got into his class because I thought I couldn't do it at first. And I wasn't trying as hard as I did now. And he just kind of pushed me into trying hard and doing computer coding and things. And yeah, that's kind of it. After that, he basically summed up what I do now and how I push myself to learning what I enjoy now to do.
Well, it is a pleasure to meet you, and I'm glad that you went into his class. And Tom, I'm glad you have your class there, because I think what I heard from you is not only, Tom, from what you've learned, but you keep learning. And I think that's always an important lesson in whatever we're doing, because as we all know on this, who are showing our faces, nothing stays still. You just have to continuously keep up. But what I would suggest is that you reach out to me on LinkedIn and do an intro, and then we can connect with our emails and talk maybe a little bit more about where you're going and what you're doing. I do know quite a few. I know a few people at Dougherty, and I definitely know some at their competitor Slalom, but I think that's exciting that you have that opportunity. What I usually do when I've mentored is they come prepared. And I don't know if you guys talk about that in this, but they come prepared with what are the questions that they want to know. And even if it's, I don't know what questions yet, and then it's, okay, here's what you can go do and do your homework and let's talk again, and then go from there. So reach out to me. And definitely let's see if things work. I have some other people in the St. Louis region who definitely have done well. I have to tell a funny story about Deanna again too, because when she met with me, she said, I'm going to become a data scientist. She did not get an undergraduate degree in data at all. And then she said, I'm going to start a company and I'll hire you. And I was like, that's some confidence there to sit and do that. The point is, she and I joke about it now because she got embarrassed about it. I was like, don't be, you went in, you knew what you wanted, you've done it. It wasn't, there is a difference between arrogance and confidence. And it's nice to see confidence, and we make some mistakes with the confidence, but it's, and in a way, a lot of it's beautiful. But first of all, congratulations again, Shazia, with that internship. Leah, who is on my team, graduated from Gateway I think. No, she didn't. She, come on. She graduated from another St. Louis school, and then she started as an intern her freshman year in college, just to let you know, and has stayed with us. She's been about to graduate now, so that's been nice to see. But reach out and keep going. And you know, the other thing, if you haven't read any, I mean, it may be a little outdated now, Malcolm Gladwell, but one of the things he points out in his book, and he does incredible research, and if you ever get to hear him speak, he's an incredible speaker. But you know, it takes a certain level of capabilities to be able to do anything, and the rest, it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. So you walking in saying that you didn't have maybe enough confidence or some confidence in the class, you know, I get that. I do get that, but then it really takes a lot of practice. And I don't care what anyone in computer science says, you know, it's anything. Data takes practice. You know, the soft programming takes practice. It all takes practice. So anyway, good for you.
Thank you.
Leslie, if you don't mind me interjecting, can I go ahead and put in the chat now your email address so that, you know, so Zaya will see that, and she can still go to LinkedIn, but at least she'll have your email address, if you don't mind.
There we go, right there.
Okay, there you go. Okay, cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Shazia, are you good with that?
Yes.
Great.
Good.
Okay, I wanted to, I don't want to take away from Mr. Pikes, Dr. Pikes, any questions he has, but I wanted to just put Malik out there too. And Malik is a junior in my computer science pathway class. Myself and my other co-instructor, we do a cybersecurity IT summer academy
Right.
for high school students across St. Louis public schools, and expanding beyond that. But basically, Malik is finishing up his junior year with me, and he has actually done cybersecurity competitions for Mr. Ferguson and myself through CyberUp. And Malik, would you say that you have a little bit more of an artistic graphic design side? I mean, I kind of see that you're into the artistic side of designing things. I mean, he's gone through the same kind of designing and coding as Shazia. But Malik, tell her your spin on who you are. I guess that's the important thing.
Yes, very good.
Okay, so I guess I can start with the fact that for the longest time, ever since I was growing up, I was always determined to kind of like be like either a comic artist or like a game designer. So like whether each path I would go, I will always, you know, stick true to my guns and follow my habits. So that's why really provoked me to stay in Mr. Bass's class. And like when I got to his class, everything was starting off good, but then like real life stuff happened to where I lost my cousin, I lost my uncle, then COVID happened, and then like it was a massive mental shutdown to me because like for the past 6 to 5 months, I've rarely even touched my drawing book like I used to, because like my family was what kept me going. Like to one day see them probably knowing that I did that work, that I did it, was what motivated me. And when I lost 2 of my family at once, it just struck me down. But now, as of right now, I'm slowly starting to pick myself back up, because it's like I'm finding a new resolve in myself to kind of finish what I started 6 months ago. And I got myself into new habits that involve designing, such as like, it's a little hobby thingy called Gunplugged, where you design model kits. And it's just like, I use that as my inspiration to kind of like design these characters and take better understanding of how like the animations and the joints will work in both games and real life. So it's like, I'm slowly picking myself back up. At the same time, I'm gaining new habits to kind of like bring back my old features and bring back my old habits, so that one day I could get there to my dream.
Okay.
That is exciting. And I think one of the things that you bring up is that unfortunately, or fortunately, I mean, life happens. And we all have setbacks, and I'm sorry for your losses, because some of those obviously are like what you've gone through. You just stop doing what you're doing, you know? And I have to say, when my boys were little, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed that I hadn't done what I hoped to do. I was, you know, I didn't stop and think, oh wow, what I've done. And the other thing is, when you have little kids, you just don't get done what you think you're gonna get done anyway. and you have other things like people passing and or people getting sick and needing your help, or I mean, you have those things. And I think what I'm hearing, which is really nice, is that you're getting back to that and you're going back to that. And that's what's great is, I actually, somebody critiqued my paintings, the pictures behind me I took, because I've been fortunate that I've been able to travel now and I love, art and photography. But I stopped painting for 10 years because of somebody criticizing me. And I regret. And then one of my friends said, no, you need to get back into an art class. Now, that's not what I do. It is not what, like what you're talking about. But the important part was, it's important to get back to that, to what keeps you going. I'm going to connect with me also for kind of a different reason. But Darrell Gunter, who you saw on my team, his nephew is actually the artist. He's actually a quite good artist and famous artist at this point, but he did the cover for the New Yorker. And I'm going to bring this up, so I'm apologizing. I don't want to trigger anybody, but he did the George Floyd graphic on the New Yorker, and which is absolutely incredible. And then there was an interactive piece to it online with the New Yorker. And I think you might want to look at that and explore that to see what certain artists are doing and where that's going as well, combining computer visualization and art as well. So connect with me. I think his nephew, as we all say, we can't afford his art anymore, but it's still a good person to know about and kind of look at what opportunities might be there for you.
Right. And I guess I could also say this as well, is that one of the many things that I also have, but I kind of stopped doing, but I was also starting to pick up, is that when I was younger, I used to tear strings out my grandmother's pillows, right? And she would get irritated with me about that. And so to kind of like counter that, she gave me pipe cleaners, right? And then for the longest time, ever since I was young in middle school and even a little bit in high school, I would go on and just make creations out of these pipe cleaners. And like, I would show you some right now, but I think we're on a tight time schedule. So like maybe next time, or probably on some one-on-one, I could probably show you a few of the leftover things I made.
You have her email address now. Check the chat, and you have her email address, so you can send that, and you all can start, communicating that way. I just want to say to Malik, I am so, I'm first of all, I'm with Leslie. I'm so sorry about your loss, and now I'm looking at the fact you're here, and I'm very grateful that you're now able to find a way to cope and move forward. So I want to point that out to you, Malik. I'm really, just pleased that you were able to return to a point where you can feel yourself beginning to accomplish some of the things that you want to do. So in regards to that, if you don't mind, let me make a connection and a bridge to Leslie. What you were talking about and what Malik is talking about is very important. But what we try to do with GatewayGIS too is to show how there's an intersection with arts and technology. Okay?
Oh yeah.
And when we think of STEAM, and when we even think about GIS or the geospatial technologies, it still requires an understanding of different disciplines that's related to art and design. So, when we talk about these different positions and what people are doing, being able to be an artist, and even if you look at Einstein, Galileo, you look at Da Vinci, all these different, well-renowned scientists, they tend to still have an artistic interest if you really go and look at their biographies. So I'm glad that you mentioned it, Leslie, and I'm glad, Malik, that you see the connection with what we're talking about, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Roz and Dr. Leslie, I wanted to thank Shazai and Malik for letting me take a few minutes.
Yes.
I didn't mean to do it during the presentation, but to open up, because they are great examples of the reason that I teach. And Dr. Pikes, I hope I didn't cut into your Q&A time, but I just wanted to let them be able to speak too.
Very good. And Darius, are you still good? Darius, would you please just quickly come on and introduce yourself to us? And I know Tom may be familiar with you, and maybe a couple of other students that sometimes attend our different forums. So Darius, are you still there? Can you come on and introduce yourself briefly so that, everybody can know who you are and your association with Gateway GIS? Are you there, Darius?
He might still be, he said he had those meetings, so I don't know. The other thing is sometimes after you have muted somebody, they can't unmute themselves. That's I've had that happen. I don't know. I think every one of these is a little different, so.
Right, okay. Yeah, because I tried to ask him to unmute. Let me see. Yeah. Okay, well, as we get ready to wrap up, is there anything else from Ziza or from Malik that you all want to know about in regards to Leslie's presentation or from her? Anything?
That's one thing I want.
Okay.
My bad.
Okay, there's one thing I wanted to ask, and that was like, I remember her saying that, like, she did art for and then she stopped for 10 years. And then I was gonna ask, like, what, like, aside from the friends telling you should do it again, like, was there any sense of motivation? Was there any sense of desire to like keep going once your friends told you that you should get back into it?
And I wish I had it around here. Yes, I try to keep it up. Now, over the past few years, I got very busy with my company and it slowed down. And actually, Mary Ulmansek, who was on here, who introduced me to Dr. Roz, she and I made a sort, it's not a competition, but a challenge to one another this month to paint a picture and then come to get, then to show our pictures so that we can motivate. Because now the hard part is you just have to make decisions on where you put your time. And it's when you're running a company and you're trying to do other things, certain things go. So from then on, I try to paint, and it may not sound like much to you, but it's not my full-time job, is I try to make sure I have at least one painting a year that I work on and I do. So that's my, and it's actually on one of my New Year's goals for this year, is to make sure I paint. I read so many books and I want to make sure I have a painting, because I fall back on that.
Right.
Once I started. Yeah. So thank you for asking that.
No problem. No problem.
Okay. Sure, Zion? Did you
I'm not sure if she like answered enough, but I just want it clear for me, like, what do you enjoy most about your job? About what you do?
Okay, so about what I do now, it's kind of twofold. I love data. I mean, that may sound as nerdy as can be, but man, I show me data about airplane flights, and I love it. I love the visualization of flights. I love looking at the data. I love being able to work on that. I love being able, honestly, I'm the CEO now, and that comes with a lot of stuff that is not fun. Working with payroll, working with, taxes, I hate. I don't like sales at all. That's why I love Darrell, because Darrell loves sales. But what I do get to do is I get to change the way that in my own little space, how the world operates, which means people are paid fairly, people are treated fairly. I set the rules for the culture. And that part I love, because I finally figured out at some point that if I didn't have control of the budget, I couldn't make the changes that I wanted. And so that part, as much of a pain as it is, and it is a pain, I love that part as well. But it does have to do with data. But I get to fall back on, I love data. So I get to do what I love on that. And I get to have the team that I want. So, and we all do, just saying, we all do stuff we don't like. Okay. I'm not, like I said, sales is not one of my favorite things at all, but I get to focus on that. So that's the answer. I love visualizing it. That takes it, that ties into the art part of the artistic part of me, that I love being able to visualize the data to see if the visualizations make sense, how we're going to present it, how we're going to present the information, because I want to make sure that I don't turn off scientists, because I want them to do better. And I don't want them to feel like this is just a report card that they get that they may not understand how to make the things better. So that excites me. A lot of it excites me. So, and I should say I'm very fortunate because my company actually was acquired late last year, and by a company called Digital Science. And so I don't have to worry about payroll anymore, which is really, really, really makes me happy. But I still get to make sure that people are paid fairly, and I get to oversee that type of thing. So,
Well, congratulations. Okay,
thank you.
that you were able to work out the kind of relationship, yeah, business-wise, because sometimes when a company is acquired by another, the cultures can create conflict, you know, for those who remain as a part of this, you know, merged company. So it's great that you're able to still do some of the things that you know, want to do, you know, with the company that you founded. So that's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I will just say that I specifically, when I was looking at companies and the possibilities, that was a huge factor. So there are trade-offs with that. You don't always make the most money when you go with a company when you want certain things, but that was a trade-off I wanted to have. This particular company has portfolios of companies underneath it. So in the science field, they have Altmetric and Figshare, which I'm not saying you have to know about, or Overleaf, but they have other ones, and they allow us, I mean, we still operate like we want. So it was nice. So
and that's, you know, that's, yeah, that's truly I would say truly a blessing, you know, given the fact that being a person of color, and I'm much older than practically everybody, you know, that's participated, but person of color and age, you can only imagine what I may have gone through over the years, coming from a similar background like yourself, Leslie. And I think we talked about this, and just not having those opportunities and trying to everyday struggle, you know, to make ends meet. And you know, when you do run a company, you're right. I mean, it's, you know, you may be able to say, I call the shots, but at the same time, you have to invest the time. Okay.
oh yes, you do.
Yeah, yeah. And it requires a lot of discipline. And without the kind of financial backing, which oftentimes so many people of color, especially females, you know, of color, you know, and at my age and time period, it was really like unheard of, some of the things that I wanted to do, but I, you know, still managed to carve it out. But let me tell you, you pay a price for that. And I can feel it now, even sometimes, you know, when I look around and see other people struggling, I can identify with it. But, you know, it's so sad because we're still dealing with it here in the 21st century. So anyway,
it is to your point. One, thank you for doing this, and it's great that you give back still and do that. You are absolutely right, and we pay a price. I know that I don't pay as big of a price because I'm a white woman. I know that, but I pay a price because I'm a woman, and I get discounted, and people don't think I can, think about technical things, or I don't know math. And one of the other hard parts I had to learn was I don't have to know everything.
Right.
But one of the choices I made, especially with the company that acquired, was I was not going to be quiet about certain things. So when, and they are bringing on more people of color. It's a British company. It's so there's also a few other dynamics going in there. They're bringing on more women, not just because of me, but I'm not quiet about it either. And that's what I feel like. There are ways to give back, like you're giving back, Dr. Roz, and Tom, for teaching, computer science. Anyone who doesn't know that a computer science teacher could go make a lot more money outside of teaching. So thank you for what you do. There is a price, but I think that you find your due north and stick with that.
Right. So I guess at this point, Tom, and it seems like you said, Darius must be tied up, but he's still on. It's just that he's tied up. Okay. So Tom, is there anything else?
Yeah, just two things. Dr. Leslie, I want to thank you so much for being with us, for being part of the Gateway GIS virtual forum. And I only say that as just being connected to it through Dr. Roz. The other thing I want to let you know is that prior to COVID and shutdowns and lockdowns and things, one of our things we do at Clyde C. Miller is have our seniors in their last semester go out on internships.
Right.
And because you are local, I just wanted to put a bug in the ear for spring of 2022 that if you're interested, I just think the way the conversation went, it would be fascinating if Malik was able to connect with you in some way or someone at your company that would represent his artistic side of how he does things, whether that is just simply mentoring or, like I said, you have a wealth of personnel that you showed on the one slide that maybe Malik can connect to, and maybe he can even intern through your company, even if that would be virtual. Again, I'm just thinking outside the box, and I will finish that by saying that all of any kind of discussions like that goes through Dr. Roz first.
Oh, listen to you.
But I just wanted to say that it's been a privilege and an honor, and I wanted to commend Shirzaya and Malik for opening up themselves because
Yes.
they didn't necessarily have to. And that's why I'm so thankful to have them in my classes. So again, I was just thinking forward for Malik for next year. But I think there would be a good, maybe there are some paintings and modeling that you two can share that would be common at some point. Again,
I've had an intern come in and do the data visualization. So, I mean, reach out, Tom, reach out, let's connect, let's talk about that. Let's get through this pandemic. Let's see each other at some point. And I'd love to talk about that potential with your students, because I think internships are great opportunities.
And all I wanted to say is I would love to have you as a guest speaker in person when we get through this, and hopefully next year when the fall might allow it, while it's still warm, even if we'd have to go outside or whatever the circumstances.
I don't live too far from, I live in the city, so it's just not that far to come over once that works out. So let's plan on that.
Thank you very much. And again, thank you for being here. My other colleague, by the way, he was teaching a freshman class during the presentation, so that's why he couldn't come on.
Got it.
Yeah. And Leslie, just so you can know, usually we do like to take our students from the GatewayGIS cohort at Clyde C. Miller Career Academy. We like to take them out to actually see the different, companies and meet with the representatives in their space. So what Tom is saying makes a lot of sense, that maybe once we go, get past this COVID and we can start, bringing people in and taking the kids out. I think that that's something that we've always wanted to do and have done in the past with the collaboration of all our different presenters. So I really think you're right, Tom. It just makes sense. I think this COVID, this whole lockdown has such an impact. And I'm telling you, you just don't know. I'm to the point where I'm at wit's end. I mean,
my PhD is in epidemiology. This is my field, and I'm done. I'm also human. We're just done. And Shirzaya and Malik, oh my gosh, hang in there, because we know you're done. I have a stepson that's still in school. I mean, it's a lot. So keep going, keep doing whatever keeps you sane right now, and do our best. And we'll keep going. But I'd love to do that. Let's keep in touch. Thank you for having me on here. I appreciate you taking your time. I appreciate what you're doing for the community, because I love to see this community grow. I think there's so much talent here that in St. Louis and the region, and it's good to see that blossom.
all right.
So thank you.
Also, too, I wanted to mention that I have Dr. Pike's email, so I will forward him your email if that's okay with your permission, Dr. Leslie, so that if there's anything he has, he can connect with you one-on-one.
Okay, very good.
Sounds great. All right.
Well, thank you all very much, and have a wonderfully blessed day. And I'm gonna say that it's gorgeous outside, so
It is.
yeah. Okay.
All right. Sounds
Thanks
good.
again,
Take care.
and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.